So, hi everybody. I have the pleasure of telling you a bit about success via community-based game development today. My name is Philomena. I'm the co-founder of a small indie studio based in Zurich, Switzerland. We are called Fawn Studio, and we're currently 6 people just working on our own games, publishing our own games, and trying to survive. So, let's get some insights here of what community-based development actually is. So this is Indie Game Guy, we'll call him. Indie Game Guy, he's working on his own project, he loves making games, he's been working on it in his free time all the time, and then after 3 years of hard work, the game is finally done. By that time, Indie Guy has grown a beard, of course, because we all know making games is hard, but the problem is, the game is cool and all, but nobody cares. It kind of didn't work out. Somehow he didn't really manage to find his target audience. Press wasn't really interested. Yeah, that's what's happened sometimes. But what if I tell you that Indie Game Guy could have done one thing differently and it could have turned out completely different? So, this is Indie Game Guy again, but instead of just working for 3 years, he is showing the game to people. He's actually showing it early in a prototype phase, involving them into development, showing them why they should maybe care, involving them, listening to their ideas, and actually forming a little group around his game. Then again, the beard has grown 3 years later. Making games is still hard. But this time, Indie Game Guy is not alone. He doesn't have to be that one-person team, or maybe that 3-person small team that is fighting the war against reaching people, but instead, Indie Game Guy now has a whole troop of people that he gathered up along the way that are making all kinds of noises and helping him to get the word out about his game. So this is a little thing I call the us state. This is the state when it's not you against the rest of the world, but you and a group of people who really believe in your idea just as much as you do, and you all want this game to succeed. So you might still wonder, why should I get there? So one reason to try and really build up a group around your game is that you will get constant feedback. And that, of course, improves your game if you listen to it. If you hear like 5 times that something is off, it's probably really off and you should work on it. So in the end, you have a better game. Also, it will be very motivating to work with your players, because we all know this point in development where like you come across a problem that is so hard and you're just, and you know, I had this other cool idea that I could be working on and it's probably working out better. And a lot of us then just tend to like jump over to the next project and never ever finish one. And if you have a group of people that is actually involved in the project already and they care about whatever being fixed and it being updated, you will be prevented from doing that. And other than that, you will see a lot of marketing benefits because, of course, many mouths can shout louder than one. So if you think this sounds neat and this sounds like a good idea, how do I actually get there? Then this is probably a session that you will enjoy. So it all starts with your game. If you make a game and it's nothing special at all, like it can't differentiate from other games, this is not going to work out, whatever technique you may be using. So first off, you should be thinking about making a game with hooks. So this can be anything. This can be a very special graphic style. This can be a special narrative, a special main character, a special game mechanic. But you just really need to think about what it is. So, for example, this is the first game that we made. We released this last year in September. And it's a game where you basically have a group of animals. It's a game about population genetics, so you try to keep your group of animals alive against all odds like predators and climate change. And we thought about what are actually the hooks with this game when we worked on it. So first of all, it's a science-based game, so you bring in people that are interested in biology or in genetics specifically, because in this game you will actually learn how genetics work. So we got all the dog breeders and biology teachers who are coming in because they think this is an interesting topic. Then there's the cute aspect of it. You look at it and you say, oh, that's cute. If you're generally into cute things, you will probably be attracted to this game. And the third point is its genre. At least back then, when we were working on it, survival and roguelike games were like super hip. The marketing is getting more crowded currently, but back then it was like, there's this cute game and it is a survival game. And that interesting mix kind of brought people in. So you also get some bonus points if you fulfill the following things. So it is easier to build up a community, I think, if you have a game that is expandable. We have seen all the cool early access games. If you have like emergent gameplay, you can add some new things and the game plays differently, then people find it very easy to come back to your game and play it again, even though they have played it earlier. I don't think it is absolutely necessary for your game to be expandable. You can have this cool narrative game with the twist at the end, but then you would probably need to approach your community building a bit differently, because you are not able to show the game all the time, but you would probably want to build up a community that is, for example, interested in detective games. And you don't even have to show your game, you just build up a community around the topic. So you get another bonus point if your game is visually appealing, if you can just post it on social media and people can see it and they go like, wow, this is it. And that certainly brings them in easily. And another one if your game is unique, or at least does a better job at something than other games. So if you, for example, make a driving game, and then you like differentiate by saying you make a driving game that is really about the drifting, that feels better than any other game, and you bring in people from there. So you think you have a game, you think you have your hooks in place, then you start to think about where to actually find those people. The first thing that comes to mind, especially because we are at one currently, are events. There's probably some local events where you live. For example, we started off by just going to a cafe that is for anime fans and just brought our laptops, set it up there, let people play, engage them. And then later on, we also started to travel around a bit. And this also helped, this of course helped to find people, but it also helped us to figure out who our target audience actually is. Because when we had the first prototype, I believed that this was our target audience, like girls at around 12 years. But by traveling and by talking to so many people, it actually turned out that there are also other people who are interested in the game. And this showed us that, okay, there's also adult people and older guys who actually think this is interesting. And this encouraged us to also add some more complex mechanics to the game, to say, yeah, we can go really deep with the whole genetics topic, and it doesn't have to be super kids friendly, because we will also appeal to adults. So that helped. And while you are traveling to those events, do me a big favor, because I see a lot of indie developers not doing that. Just grab people's email addresses. If you have someone at your booth and they're like super enthusiastic about what you're doing, just ask them if they want to get more information on the game when you update something, when you launch, at least when you launch. And they're usually very happy to do it. They just fill in their name, fill in their email address, and then you can put it onto some platform. For example, we use MailChimp to just have them all in place. And on the day the game actually launches, you can just send out an email to all of them at once, because otherwise all those people you have met will most likely not know of your launch once the time arrives. So another thing I'm sure a lot of you are also doing is social media, especially if your game is very visually appealing. You can look into the different platforms of social media there are. There are like a lot of specific subreddits, so you can think, what kind of group of specific people does my game appeal to, or specific hashtags or Facebook groups. There's just endless things going on there. And another thing that is sometimes a bit overlooked is related communities. So for Niche, for this genetics game, one of the biggest inspiration for the game was actually a book series which is called Warrior Cats, which is a book series for children where wild cats live in the forest and try to survive. And I just thought I would be bold and write the author an email and said, hey, you wrote this very cool book series and I enjoyed it, and it was one of the main inspirations to our game. And she replied to that, and she liked it a lot, and she just gave us a lot of shout-outs on social media, and this brought in a lot of people who liked the Warrior Cat series. So there are actually a lot of community already in place that you can just tap into and bring in people from there. You just need to think where they could be. Which brings me to the next problem. So if you have those 300 teenage warrior cat reading girls that are interested in your game, where do you actually bring them? So they heard about it now, but they don't really know what to do it because the game is not yet out. They don't know where to go. Maybe they go to the website real quick, but then they're off again and not sure you will ever reach them again. So you would want to think about opening up a community hub. So there are lots of different options again. One that is currently very popular is Discord, where you can directly chat with your fans, or you could open a subreddit and put them there, or a Facebook group, or your own forum. Though when you open your own forum, it's a bit hard because people then actively need to go to your forum instead of when they're on Facebook anyways and they're just notified when new content is posted. So there's always some up and down sides on all these platforms. But there are also some that are very cool to bring people in. I mean, if you post an amazing trailer on YouTube and if you post some cool GIFs on Twitter, that's nice, but that's actually not where you want your people to be. I mean, it's very cool to have a lot of Twitter followers, but that is not actually a community. So here, indie game guys just going, yeah, make this really cool new update, and people are like, wow, it looks so cool. That is not a community. You could call that a fan base, but if you have a community, what you actually want is people connecting to each other. It's cool if they're also connecting to you and they're listening to you, but it's very important that they're also making friends with each other and connecting with each other. So let's sum this up real quick. You're trying to find interested people, bring them in from events, put them in a newsletter, and then you can just send out the newsletter and invite everyone to your Discord. You can look at related communities or social media. So you have all those people now. Maybe it's not that many yet. Maybe it's like 30 or 50 people that you gathered while you traveled around or that you found on social media. But the question is still, how do you handle them? Like, you have this group of people and it can be maybe a little bit awkward. And it's actually very cool if you have very few people in the beginning, because then you have time to form up your backbone. This is what I call the core of the community. So you would want to really, at this point, establish a point and rules, a tone and rules with those people. So you now have the time, if it's like only 30 people, to get to know each of them individually. You can be a role model. They will look at you and they will see how you communicate and they can mimic your behavior. And if you're lucky, you have like a very nice tone. Everyone is nice with each other. They all know the rules. And then when the community grows, this backbone that you formed can then spread into the other parts of the community body. You will want to make people feel welcome and at home. So when they are there, they're trying to make friends there. They feel like they can come back. They feel safe when they say something. This is really, if you allow people to be rude to each other in this early stage, it will spread like crazy. So this is really the time where you can look at every single thing you don't want to happen in your community and resolve it. Then this is also a great time to show people that you are human, because you still have the time, because the community is so small, to connect with each one of them. You can talk about them about their hobbies and what you like to do. And if something ever happens that gets you in doubt because something happened that is not that great, these people will probably jump in because they know you're a nice person. Another thing that is great if you can do it is if you can show your community the benefits of actually being in your community. So, for example, if you do a new update for your game and you post it in your own forum first, then people will feel very empowered because they see that they are the ones to get the information first. And then maybe someone is even faster than you, jumps on Twitter and posts the news there, and everyone is like, wow, how do you know? And they're like, yeah, I'm in the core community, I know. So they feel like really connected to you and really powerful. Or for example, if you give them some discount codes or whatever that other people are not getting, to really make them feel rewarded for being a part of this core group. And I think it's also great if you don't have to rush too much. You can grow slowly. With Niche, we even had the Facebook group, and we only invited in like one new person every few days, and we actually introduced them to each other. So this is person X, this is person Y, and you're both interested in dogs, go. And then they started talking to each other, and friendships started to form. And these friendships and those people that are like very connected to you become very important in the long run. In the beginning, when your community is small, it's cool. Then you feel connected to them, that's nice. There's no huge additional thing going on there. But once your community grows, you will see how that becomes important in a sec. So if everything goes well, you will keep growing. What you will always want to do is listen to feedback, because if you don't want to do that, you probably don't need a community in the first place. They are there to talk to you, they are there to be heard. So you should always keep your ear open for feedback. And it's great if you can actually implement some of these suggestions, because people will feel a huge sense of ownership when you do it. So, don't know, Tom and Lisa made some cool suggestion, and then you add it to the game and you say, this is Lisa's cool suggestion, and Lisa will feel like, yeah, my idea made it into the game, and it will feel a bit more like her game, and she will feel a lot more invested in how it actually goes, if it actually manages to sell some copies and to keep sustaining itself. You want to make your community feel understood, so if there is something going on, maybe some little argument, don't just walk away from it, but really talk it out so you don't have some leftover bad energy in your group. And one thing that I've seen helping a lot of developers really communicating clearly with their community and getting good feedback is if you actually manage to communicate a clear vision. For example, with our game, we had some people suggesting that we should add like base building mechanisms, like your animals should be able to build traps to lure others into, and we just clearly told them, no, this is not the kind of game we want to make. We want the animals to be real animals. They are not able to think like humans. We want them to migrate around. And then if they understand it, the feedback that will come in the future is a lot more accurate to what you actually want to do. So you know that this is perfectly in line when the things you want to add to the game and the things your community wants to add to the game are pretty much the same. And it's important to be always honest and transparent. So if your update is coming in late, and just tell them, yeah, I kind of didn't manage to finish in time, I was sick, or I didn't feel so well, I'm sorry, I'm putting it up. And if you're just being honest and transparent on why you're not delivering something, people are usually very, very forgiving. So, if you're doing all these things well, then your community just keeps growing. Friends are inviting more friends. And again, the core people that you connected to early on are becoming very important, because at this point, you will need some people who help out with the community, who do moderations. There might also be other communities of your game popping up in other places. So suddenly you have a subreddit. You didn't open it yourself, but other people's open it. And some people of your core community jump over there and take on moderation rules. So, cool, you have a group of people now, you're well connected to them, they listen to you, you listen to them. Question is, what happens now? So there's a lot of things you can actually do with your community. I've been empathizing on this already. You get a lot of feedback. And if you manage your community well, you also can build up your own internal QA team, because if you teach people how they actually should report bugs, like when you report a bug, tell us which version it is, add a screenshot, and so on. And if you manage to do that early on, those early members pass on that knowledge, and it actually becomes a very useful resource on finding and fixing things in your game. Community also loves to do localization. I've seen various games who have done this. In our case, they have localized the game to 6 languages. We basically just gave them a Google Sheets, and some people were in charge of each specific language, and they translated it by themselves. They're still doing it whenever we are doing an update. They're jumping in there, adding some more things, because again, this is their game as well. They want to see it expanded, they want to see new things added, and they're happy to help with tasks such as this one. We're currently working on our second game, which is called Nimbatus, and there we added an option to very easily export GIFs from the game. So these are some drones that players have built inside the game. And this is very useful. I'm sure You've all had the situation, it's Saturday again, oh, I have to post something for Screenshot Saturday, I was too busy to record a cool GIF or whatever. And at this point, you can really just look at what your community is making, and usually the things they are making are very cool, and you can just go there, credit them. This is also good for you. This is good for you because you have social media content to post, and good for them because they feel honored that they have been featured, so win-win there. And also other fan art, which is again cool to post on social media. This is from Niche. And it's also very cool and motivating for your team or for yourself if you see that people are actually spending time creating art for your game, especially if it was like a 4-year-old girl who does her drawing experiences with your game. Another thing are funding options. So you can think of whether or not your community would be willing out to help you in actually funding your game. These are two very popular options here, the first of which is Patreon. I'm not sure, maybe you have seen how Dwarf Fortress handles it, so they're basically getting in their development money over Patreon. Another very nice example of this recently is Ooblet, who managed to get some of their development costs covered by Patreon. We personally have not used Patreon yet. We are more of the Kickstarter guys. We have done 2 Kickstarter campaigns, the first of which was for the first game Niche, and the other was for Nimbatus. For some reason, they both pretty much acquired the same sum, so around 75,000, even though they were completely different. I'm going a bit more into depth about that now. With Niche, we already had a community in place when we started the Kickstarter, and we thought like, yeah, Kickstarters may be cool to just engage them more and let them, and offer them a way to help us out. But for Nimbatus, it was completely different. There, we didn't have a community in place at all, and we actually managed to somehow build it up on the run doing the Kickstarter. So I think Kickstarter is good for both engaging your community, but also really building it up and making it bigger. And then this was the point for me where it really came down to see, is this actually our game? Is this not just the game of our studio, but is it the game of our players? So when we launched it back in September, we clearly communicated to our players that if we don't manage to ship 50,000 units, then we could no longer update the game because we would not have the funds necessary to keep working on it. And then we offered people like a small list of things they could do to help. They could write their favorite streamer about the game, they could retweet things, they could reach out to other influencers and press that they want to read about the game. And they went nuts. They put in so much effort into this. They wrote out hundreds, thousands of emails, reached out to so many people. It resulted in a lot of coverage, which we would never have achieved on our own. And we actually managed to easily beat that goal because of them, and now they get more free updates. So it's always like a symbiotic relationship between you and your community that you should try to achieve. So let's sum this up. So you create a game. First of all, you create a game with hooks. Then you try to find interested people. You bring them together. You treat them well. You grow together. Then you rock. And hopefully, Indie Game Guy will have a super happy, healthy community and a lot more games that he can work on in the future. Thank you.
So if you have a question for Philomena, please come up to one of the mics in the aisles. And while we're waiting, I have a question for you.
Ooh.
So were you the only one working on community things on the team, or was it a whole team effort, or did you have somebody else doing it?
It was mostly me. Some of our team members sometimes jumped in, especially on specific platforms where they were maybe more used to, such as Reddit, but yet it was mostly me. And you can do it, you can still be a game developer, actually get some work done and manage your community if you do it smart. Especially if it's growing bigger, you just have to give up more responsibility and give more responsibility to your moderators and show them if you're really needed, how they should contact you, and if you're not needed, how they can handle the situation themselves. So it has actually, even though the community has grown a lot bigger, the effort has not grown with it because you can give it to people that care.
Hi. Hello? Is this on?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Just making sure. So when cultivating your community, did you find certain platforms doing better than others? And like, based on what platform, like, did you, I guess, kind of tailor how you, I guess, worked with the community based on the platform? Like, how much are the platforms like changing based on how you approach your communities?
So you mean how to choose your platform for the community hub, where to bring them?
Yeah, like Reddit versus Discord versus
Yes.
forum.
Depends on the game. For example, with Niche, our target audience seemed to be a lot more on Facebook, and they greatly appreciated the Facebook group. They were not so much on Reddit. For Nimbatus, it's mostly Reddit and Discord. So I think you can just start up anywhere and see where it sticks most, and then choose this as your main hub.
Cool, thank you.
Cool.
Go ahead.
I know that you were saying that it took a while for you to get to the point where you were, I guess you were handling all of the social media, but how often were you updating each individual branch of that? How often were you checking it? How much time were you spending?
You mean how much we updated which social media channel?
Yeah, exactly.
Depended a lot on where we actually were in the game. So what we're trying to do with the company is that everyone who is working on the game and comes across something interesting, they just like hit screen record real quick, put it in a folder, and I can go from there. While we are not in a intensive marketing cycle, such as close to launch, we usually update like 2 or 3 times a week. And usually it only makes sense to update if you have something interesting to show. So sometimes there's a week where there's not much going on, and sometimes we have we're on a roll and we put out a lot of stuff. Yeah, no real rule there, sure.
Hi, are you still actively updating Niche? Is that still like an active development? It is? Okay, because I have a question about how do you handle as like in the slower periods of development, or when you begin to sort of cease development on a title, do you have any plans for how to sort of maintain community engagement as you are, say, working on the next product?
Yes, so with Niche, we're working on it 1 day a week still, making some updates. And how we handle it is that we every few months we do a community voting. So they can the whole year they can make suggestions, and then at some point we say, okay, this and this and this and this and this would be possible to add to the game, and then we announce it now you can vote on new features, and then they jump on that and vote on their favorite features and talk about it, why this would be better or that would be better, and then we add that to the game. But development has slowed down a lot recently, so before we were working on it full-time, now it's only 1 day a week. But still, because they can discuss what would be best and really what should we suggest for the next community update, they're still very much there.
How much longer are you planning on doing?
Maybe at least this year, and if it keeps selling well, then maybe beyond.
All right. Do you have a way to measure the effect of your community on your business results? And if you do, I'd be curious to hear about that.
Yes, to some extent. So we know a bit of where the traffic is coming from what. And we often hear, for example, if we have a big YouTuber or streamer playing it, they say, yeah, I'm streaming this because a lot of people have requested it, and not because we reached out to them or something. So we see where the community actually is taking effect. But we are not doing super in-depth analysis.
Okay, 2 more.
Sure. Do you see that because Facebook and Reddit and Discord are such open platforms, users can create their own communities? Do you see that happening a lot too, that users and players are actually creating their own communities? And if so, how do you see that ecosystem working with your official community?
Good question. Yeah, that actually happens quite a lot. And sometimes you just see that people are nice to each other. It seems to work on their own. Sometimes you want to maybe talk to the moderators about how they could maybe improve things. But most of the communities, at least for Niche, were opened up by the community itself. And again, some of the backbone members were the ones who opened them. So they sometimes even informed us that, hey, I want to open a subreddit. And I'm like, yeah, sure. Because I know that this person already knows what we're trying to like have in terms of values. So, but if it's not going well, just try to reach out to the moderator and see. And if it's totally not going well, then you can still think about opening an official niche subreddit and like this is not the thing, this is the real thing, if you want to.
Cool. Thank you.
Hi, yeah, my question is, you did mention a lot of your game revolves around community building, and how do you guys deal when like the community itself starts becoming very toxic? And do you guys just like drop the ban hammer, or?
Yeah, we have banned some people. It doesn't happen so often if you like warn people about what you like. If you just tell them what's the rules in this thing and not try to correct their character. So you can be an asshole, that's fine, but please don't be an asshole in here. These are the rules. Then they usually listen to it. Even if there's some pretty bad trolls, we had to ban some people though. And usually then that's the good idea to just, yeah.
Cool, thank you.